Rail Up, the future mobility podcast with innovators and leaders of the ecosystem. Presented by Sebastian Sperker.
In this episode, I'm bringing you the latest on 4 of the global frontrunners in autonomous freight rail. A lot has happened since our first deep dives, and the momentum is only building. Expect fresh insights, bold plans, and a journey into the future with parallel systems Nevomo, Intramotive, and Otiv. I'm certain these names will keep making headlines, so let's jump right in and hear directly from the CEOs and founders. Let's start our journey with parallel system. Hi Matt, and welcome back to RAILUPPODCAST. Today we're talking about an update, and it's almost 2 years ago when we had our first podcast episode, and I remember the time. I think you already had the first gen vehicle, so you worked on the second generation. Then you were looking for FRA approval and also to go expand your business outside the US. So can you give us just a few where you are now? What's your project you're working right now? And what was the biggest achievement in the last 2 years?
Yeah, great to reconnect. We've been very busy. We are simultaneously piloting in the US and Australia. So I believe we last talked August of 2023. So around that time, we submitted an application through one of our partner railroads, Genesee, Wyoming, to do a pilot in southern Georgia. And we have approval now. We've started that pilot. We completed phase 1 a couple months ago, and we're about to start phase 2. So really excited to be out there and actually doing it. And we have also been on the General Rail System Australia. That was last year. So we delivered one of our vehicles to our Australian partner, ARC Infrastructure, back in late 2023, and did a debut and unveiling there. And then we did a pilot on the General Rail System in October of 2024. And we continue to work with them towards advancing and deploying this technology. And we're also generating our third version of the vehicle right now. So we're actually going to be building that here very shortly. And the great thing is we've got a tremendous amount of backlog, and we're gearing up for building our manufacturing line and starting to execute on that demand.
One of the milestones, I guess, was definitely the FRA approval. So what was the feeling having the FRA approval?
I mean, it's just a piece of paper, but it was pretty exciting because it was a lot of work to get to that, a lot of relationship building, establishing credibility, but also just explaining how the technology works and successfully making the safety case for deploying it.
And is there any moment or a moment where said, okay, now we had the golden key how to get this approval? Was it a discussion with the authority, or was it a pilot where the people can see it, or there was the change of the administration?
I think it was always just a matter of time, continuing to reinforce the safety story around it. I think it never feels like, okay, here's this one moment where we've arrived, right? It's about continuous progress.
Yeah.
And that's how the pilot itself is structured, is to take on a relatively modest scope of work, prove out the performance of the vehicle, the safety controls, and then build upon that for each phase. So we're excited to be doing that right now with both our railroad partner and the FRA in the field. Everyone's been hands-on, observing the vehicle, giving feedback, and it's been going fantastic.
Okay. And can you just tell us some more details about the test stretch, what you have? Because it's not just 1 mile, it's a really extended track or the distance.
Yeah, the phase, so the track itself is about 160 miles.
Wow.
Ultimately, the pilot will traverse that long of a distance. For the second phase that we're about to start, it's about 30 miles of track that we'll be traversing.
You have a supervision, from one colleague steering the vehicle, or at least supervise it?
The scope of the pilot is to not have autonomy in control of the vehicle. It is ride along right now. And so we have a person monitoring the vehicle at all times.
Okay.
And so that starts out by being in person with a line of sight. Ultimately, that moves to someone remotely overseeing the vehicle's operations.
Okay. And what would be then the next step for this pilot case?
So this is a pilot to really prove and validate the technology, but this does have a commercial aspect to it, because one of the reasons why this made sense for all parties is that this is a major freight market. It's local to the Port of Savannah, and there's a lot of trucking activity. And we are working towards that with multiple parties. Like, how do we go beyond the pilot and actually make this a commercial service that enables the vision that we've created to allow rail to play a greater role in freight transportation? And when you go to the Port of Savannah, you can see how real this problem and opportunity is. Like, there's a tremendous amount of truck activity there.
And do you also have like a timeline when you would like to start there, the commercial services?
Yeah, we're focused on doing the pilot correctly first. Like, there's no time limit. So going through each of these phases, meeting the objectives is our focus right now, and however long that may take. We're very confident that, with the work we've done, that will be a smooth process, but it'd be hard to say like exactly when it would be done.
And if you just zoom into Australia, as far as I remember, it's like in Perth, right?
Yeah, we're in Western Australia, WA, in Perth. They have a port, they import, export freight, and they've got a great rail network there. And the opportunity is really the same as it is globally, is how do we allow rail to play a greater role in moving this freight? It doesn't have to be necessarily constrained to containers. It could be trailers, it could be bulk products. But like any major economy, they're moving stuff around, and there's a lot of environmental and public advantages to having more freight moved by rail. It's safer, decongest highways. When you go to Perth, you can see all the truck activity there as well.
And if we look like at the company parallel, is there also like a change that you're involved? Because when we started, you had roughly, I think, 80 employees there, and like a part of software and hardware engineers. So how the company involved, and if it's still located in Los Angeles?
Yeah, we're still in LA. We're hiring. We are, for the first time, we're building out our manufacturing team. So that's really exciting because we're kind of wrapping up this era of like, let's have track-worthy prototypes go out there and validate the technology and performance and operations. And now we are turning to the next chapter, which is to actually build a productized version of this that will have better performance. It will have simpler assembly. It'll be less expensive. We continue to refine our safety of the vehicle. We're making the brakes better than ever. So it's a great time for us to be growing into like that next phase. And right now we are working with contract manufacturers as we work on executing our first purchase orders.
Okay, so you already have the first purchase order, so that's really like a big step, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And in terms also like as you like, I don't know if you see yourself like a startup still, but also like from the investors' perspective, are more attraction to companies like parallel, like in this specific sector?
I think that there's always an interest in how do we build a successful business, especially something that serves the public in such a strong way. Transportation is something that's relevant for everyone every day. Even if you're not in that sector, like we all ultimately as consumers like are affected by like what does transportation cost? What's the quality of it? So we have a great business model. We have a great addressable market. And I think that's always going to be attractive to investors. I would still say we're a startup company though. We're not there in terms of like a regular everyday company that's just like turning the crank. But it's a really exciting time for us.
Great. And last question, mate, like if we have like a third session in 2 years' time, what would be the topic we're talking about then?
I think we're talking about all the trucks we're taking off the roads.
Okay. That's great. Then thank you very much, Matt, for the update. And of course, we will stay in contact. Thank you very much. Let's continue our journey with Nevomo. Hi, Stefan, and welcome back to the RAILUP podcast, to the second time or even third time. We had our first session almost 2 years ago. I visited you on the site in Poland, on the test site. And yeah, I know that since then a lot of things happened. So it would be great if you share this with us. So what happened since then?
Yeah, thanks for the re-invite, Sebastian. A pleasure to meet again. Yeah, indeed. It was like 2 years ago when we met here in RAILUP podcast, where I talked like a lot about like my vision about railways and what will happen in the future and levitating trains and such. And truth be told, that vision is still alive, but we have refocused quite a lot, because like as a startup, you know how it is, like with rare resources like engineers and money. So you have to focus. And we decided to put our vision a bit maybe not aside, but like to put the vision more into the future and work more basically on stuff that is needed now within railways. So more automation, more sidings, more private operation than like public networks, because everything else just takes, as I told you like last time already, like everything in railways always takes decades and costs billions of euros. And as a pre-revenue startup, we needed basically like a client. So that's why we focused quite a lot on the technology that we also talked about like last time, which was a microwave booster. So no levitation, just a pure propulsion system. You might also remember my surfer analogy. So
absolutely, yeah.
Creating a magnetic wave, and then the wagon, the retrofitted wagon, is just basically floating on top of the magnetic wave with that counter device, which is a magnetic surfboard. And this is what we are currently doing. So we have now started commercialization like a year ago, also like with the first client that we have now on board that I can also like talk about in a second. And as said, now we focus on private sidings, ports, logistics zones, industrial zones, where we basically bring automation, electrification towards these sidings with our microwave booster technology.
Okay, but you already said like terminals and sidings. So basically, you focus right now on cargo, so rail freight.
Yeah. For now, cargo. The technology would also work for passenger use cases, but you know how it is with passengers. You have like all these additional safety issues. And basically, we are convinced that if it works for cargo, it will also like technically work for passenger. And then this is mainly like a regulation and safety aspect that we have.
Okay, perfect. Then let's start. Tell us a little bit about your first real project, actually, or case.
Quite proud of it, because it's not like
you have to be here.
Or tiny project. So we were able to convince directly last year before Christmas, Captrain, or like to be specific, Hansebahn Bremen, which is like the Captrain daughter, who is doing the railway operations in the ArcelorMittal steel factory in Bremen here in Germany. And they are planning to equip like one of their main operational lines with our technology. So between the cold mill, where they produce these big steel coils, so these big 20, 40 ton steel coils, and they load it on, for the railway experts in the podcast, on Schimpfwagons. And then these Schimpfwagons are basically sent to the galvanization area for the further production step. And they are currently operating with 10 wagons, so two times 5 wagons, and they just like exchange it with a locomotive. And these operations will be taken over with our technology when we implement it then. And instead of 10 wagons, they will then have 6 wagons running in wagon groups of 2 wagons. So they gain a lot of flexibility. And also like an interesting number, we cut down the process time of 2 hours something to 7 minutes for a round trip. And inside of the 2 hours, it's mainly waiting for the locomotive to arrive, while the wagons, when they are automated, can just basically go to the other siding. So it's a massive upgrade in flexibility. So even truck-like operations are possible. You can just like load one coil, send it over, because like 5 minutes later, the empty wagon could be already back in your cold mill basically for the next loading. So here we do not even just replace the locomotive service, but on top also like 1,000 truckloads a year, which they usually use when the locomotive is not available or just takes too long. So even like from road to rail, this is done automatic. And on top, we were able to get support here from the German federal state, so Eisenbahnbundesamt, and with their program Zukunftsschienengüterverkehr with the DZSF. So their innovation department is basically also supporting it financially, which is helping like to take away some of the financial burdens from being the first client, and also like from the technical risk. So a bit of de-risking from the German state, which is also quite good.
The steps to the full automation or autonomy, like you also planned like a couple of steps. Can you also tell us a little bit what is your approach for the licensing?
So legally, as you know, we are not allowed basically to run fully automatic yet. So we start also like with some remote control on-site operations. So an operator is basically sitting there, surveying the wagons and basically doing the operations. In a second step, we will have remote control operations from the interlocking center of Captrain on site. So we'll have like a video stream, and somebody is basically watching the wagon while it's doing its operations. This needs some legal upgrades because it's currently not allowed. But as Eisenbahnbundesamt is involved and also was very keen on these automations, I'm quite sure that we will find a good solution here. And The third step that will also be done then directly within that project is in full automation. So at a certain point in time when we've proven that the remote control is safe to use, then basically the system itself will perform the operation, then basically triggered by the logistics systems on site. So basically the logistics systems tells our system, I want to load coil X into wagon 3. Wagon 3 has to be in the other facility at 1600. And then basically the tarpaulins of the wagons open, the crane is loading it. When the crane is basically confirming that it's loaded, the tarpaulin closes, the whole door opens, the track is basically checked if everything is free and safe to use. And then the wagon is just basically doing its move and then basically confirming that it's in the other hall. So this is a fully I would call it automatic system because like somebody is still in charge, like giving commands via the logistics systems. Because like an autonomous system would be also insane. So if the wagon is just deciding what he wants to do on site, I think would cause more mess than.
But in the end of the day, I mean, you started with basically with one local drivers and 10 wagons and an operations time of 2 hours. And then basically you end up with 2 + 2 wagons. One guy is more or less a little bit a supervisor to start the process and you cut down the operation time to 7 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which underlines, I think, like really the power of this new technology. And this new technology is also not just seen in Germany, but also you have even globally some interesting projects in the Middle East and in India. So can you also tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can tell something, not all of it, because it's still in negotiation. So, but we are very happy to announce basically that we have closed a memorandum of understanding for now for a project in India, in the port of Dindayal. This is in the Kandla region, so northeast in India, together with DP World, also one of the biggest harbor and port operators and logistic operators. And we are currently in preparation for that on-site project, which will be a bit bigger than the Bremen project, but besides like nearly the same configuration, but with adaptations to the Indian and Middle East market already. This is a bit different than in Europe. So this is already like also like a step to basically grow outside of Europe with a first footprint on site. And but here the kudos go basically to my fellow Harj Dalival, who is like the on-site manager and basically the Stefan for that region. And he's also like doing a great job there on site with this network. But we're very proud because like these, again, like 2 big players that will help us basically scale the technology then into other regions, but also like other use cases and applications. And this is also like how we plan to scale, truth be told. Because like if you can do it in that one facility in Bremen, then you could do it also like on other production lines in Bremen. So we can scale intra-site. We can also then scale intra-client because like ArcelorMittal, for example, has plenty of different locations. So if it works in Bremen, it would also work in Poland, for example, in the ArcelorMittal facilities, and the same with DP World. So if it works in the port in India, it would also work in the 50+ ports globally with DP World. So that intra-client scaling, I think, is quite smart. And then you can scale intra-industry. So if it works in steel, it would also work in automotive. If it works in automotive, it would also work in refineries, for example. And then if it works in ports and in industrial zones, I'm quite sure that also like the big network infrastructure managers like DB InfraGo, ÖBB, SBB Infra, and also like the regulators and the safety authorities will then open up. So like I think that was a quite smart move, not a real pivot from Nevomo, to basically find an increment that we could already commercialize and show that it works in safe but high frequent and high demanding environments, to then bring it also like to the open network. And this is basically then to circle back to the big vision that we still have, that we could grow basically into the big network.
Okay, that sounds great. And one last question: like, has the company structure actually changed from the 2 years before, or is it more or less like the same size and proportion of engineers and?
Yeah, it's round about the same size. So what has changed is that we now have also like a German branch of Nevomo, so Nevomo Deutschland in place just for commercial operations. But the headquarters, the operational headquarters, the engineering team is still in Warsaw in Poland. We're still working on our test track, which will reopen hopefully later this year, like with new functions. So you can come and see it again, Sebastian, if you want. And the legal financial headquarters is still in the Netherlands, I think, which was also like the case like back then. But this is more for investor reasons and such. Yeah.
A pure Europe story which goes globally. So Stefan, thank you very much for the update. We stay in touch, and when there is something new, you will be invited again, and all the best.
Thanks, Sebastian. See you soon.
Let's jump to Intramotive. Hi, Alex, and welcome back to RAILUP. Today we're talking about the update. So it's quite a time ago when we had our joint episode with Tim and you together. So can you just tell us what happened since then?
Yeah, Sebastian, thanks for having me back. It's great to be here, and it has been a long time. I had to go back and look up when the last time we chatted was, and I couldn't believe it was May of 2024 when this was released for the first time. So unbelievable that it's been a year and a half since we've caught up here on the podcast. But we've had a lot of progress since then at Intramotive. We've been really moving forward quickly into deploying vehicles into production since then. And I think what we're most proud of is that we successfully deployed 3 tugboat units into full production with our customer, with Carmoose. So that's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a limestone mine. We did that this past April, so April 2025. And so far, we've moved over 250,000 tons, so over 250,000 tons of production material autonomously for them, which is over 3,600 carloads or wagon loads for our European listeners, and over 5,000 miles traveled. So we are really putting those vehicles through the paces, generating a ton of great data, and most importantly, serving our customers and solving a need and a pain point for them. Previously in their operation, the rail was kind of the bottleneck, and now it's not. So we're moving so much that sometimes their plant can't keep up. So I think that's a really good thing for us, and that's definitely the most exciting thing that we've done in the last year and a half as we continue to expand with them. But we've continued to grow our team as well with amazing people. So we're now up to about 50 employees. One of the more notable additions in that time was hiring our chief commercial officer in March. So we brought in kind of our first real outside industry expertise from a commercial perspective. So Harry Zander joined us. He's got about 3 decades of experience in rail, ranging from rolling stock leasing platforms. He led innovation at one of the largest U.S. railcar manufacturers, Trinity Rail. And most recently, he was chief revenue officer at Patriot Rail, who owns and operates over 30 short line railroads here in the U.S. So it's been incredible to have him on board and have the experience and connections that he has.
The tugboats, basically, that's the system where you upgraded the conventional wagons. Like, how many of them are running for the customers right now?
So we have 3 at the mine with Carmoose, and then we have our internal units as well that have been kind of around the country demonstrating and also switching rail cars for our neighbors here in St. Louis. They get box cars on a several times a week basis that we switch in and out for them. So we've continued to, put miles and put these vehicles through the paces essentially. And, one of the other exciting things that I can announce today is that we continue to, gain commercial agreements and secure commercial agreements with amazing customers. And, I can share that we've just signed an agreement with Watco, which is one of the leading short line railroad holding companies and terminal companies. They have about 45 short line railroads in their network and 70 terminals. So, they've agreed to deploy the tugboat in their network, starting with the first one here in Wood River, Illinois, which is just across the river from us in St. Louis. So very convenient for us to be able to deploy one across the river there and help them in their transload operations and switching. So we'll basically be moving cars around for them where soda ash is being transloaded into semi trucks for local delivery. So it's super exciting to have a customer of that caliber and scale. And, we continue to look forward to, expanding into their operations and the operations of many more customers here in the U.S.
how does it like works, like the autonomous operations on a specific site? Is there really no one anymore from supervision involved, or like how we can imagine that these autonomous operations are in reality?
Yeah, it really depends on what the customer wants and what solves their problems. So for example, at Carmoose, they prefer to drive it remotely in the load and unload areas. So basically having that human oversight to make sure it's spotted correctly. And then, when you're dumping the car for safety purposes, hopefully you and your viewers and listeners have seen the video of the operation at Carmoose where it's sort of dumping over the side of the bridge. They don't want to do that completely autonomously. They want to make sure that, someone has an eye on where it is dumping at this point. But it travels autonomously from the load to the unload point. So they're doing that every day. So it really depends, but sometimes the customer need is met just by having it remote controlled and being able to do it remotely, non-line of sight from the tablet interface that we have. So that is a huge benefit for people in switching yards and shunting operations where maybe it's easier to just have somebody controlling it like that, but it's still more efficient because they don't have to be right there or on the locomotive to actually move something. So, but otherwise, we are operating autonomously every day up at Carmoose.
One big topic always when we talk about autonomous or high automated train operation is like about the certification or the homologation. Is that a big topic as well, like in your cases?
Of course, definitely. So, our strategy to date has been to go into unregulated use cases first. So Carmoose, for instance, they are an insular railroad that is completely disconnected from the rest of the North American system. And, plant railroads typically are not governed by the FRA here in the US if it's staying within the fence line and is sort of within, the bounds of basically a captive operation. So that's what we've gone into first. But we are obviously, wanting and working on expanding into more regulated and use cases that require certification and homologation. We have an opportunity in Europe that we're extremely excited about, which would require some homologation efforts and certification behind that for a regulated sort of mainline use case, which is amazing. And we're also looking at expanding and partnering with railroads here in the U.S. for our first waiver use cases where we would be going out onto the national rail system here in the U.S. But we feel very confident and strong in what we've been able to generate data-wise. So we think of just the massive scale of what we've done with Carmoose, for instance, where we are operating every day for up to 14 hours a day, multiple trips. That's generating a ton of data, more than we could ever test in sort of a closed environment. So being able to take that from private use cases, our unregulated use cases, and utilize that data with the regulators is a huge benefit to us. And that's what we're looking forward to taking the next step on.
Okay. What was like areas where said it was much more easier than expected, and where were areas where said, okay, I never expected it getting that complicated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's it's just the ups and downs of startups and new companies or newer companies in technology, and there have been great moments and easy moments with deploying the technology and where things, went way better than you could ever expect. And there have been things that have slowed us down. And, some of those things can be just something as simple and happenstance as, we've got about 50 people in our company. I think about 10 of them have had babies, either them or their partners in the last year. So, it's when you take away a fifth of your workforce, essentially, including Tim, our CEO, is a new father, and Corey, our CTO, and my other co-founder had twins. So, all these people are balancing hard real life things, and it's just the reality of when you're a smaller business, the things you don't expect that, everybody's going to have a baby at the same time. that could definitely slow you down. But no, we've worked through it. It's been amazing, and we're happy to have the Intramotive team growing from a family perspective as well.
Alex, thank you very much for the update. So we definitely stay in touch, and we probably come with the next updates maybe next year, so that we don't have just another year. But great that you are progressing in this area, and thanks for having you.
Yeah, great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to catch up, and excited to hear the updates from the rest of the companies as well. We're excited about the future, and not only the future of our company, but the future of the industry in general. And I think it's great that you've gathered companies that are sort of our peers in this space, and we need to all work together to advance this industry and this area of technology. To bring it to life, because it's a huge societal benefit, and we're looking forward to making that impact.
Yeah, and it's the spirit of RAILUP to shape the ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, thank you.
Let's close with Otiv. Hi Niels, and welcome to RAILUP. As a co-founder of Otiv, I'm very happy that you're also today with us. And let's talk about an update. It was a couple of months ago when Sam gave us the first episode of Otiv. So Niels, what happened since then?
Super happy to be here. From what I heard, the last time you spoke with Sam was 6 months ago. In the startup landscape, 6 months is a lot of time, and a lot can happen. So a lot definitely happened. Maybe first and foremost, we're still growing as a company. As we discussed, we're having different verticals, different products, going from assistance, remote control to full autonomy. That obviously requires smart people to make it happen. But on the other hand, different projects have actually propelled into new opportunities. I'll discuss that in a bit. But I think mainly the bigger project that is still ongoing and that is going for a long trial is the Deutsche Bahn project, where we're basically working with Deutsche Bahn to remotely control a couple of vehicles as a fallback, but also for last mile purposes. And there, the big new thing is what we can announce is that we are actually also chosen to be the perception partner. So mainly for those last mile operations where we have a remote control to basically go also towards autonomy, right? Using these perception stacks that we're so known of building, and that's the core of what Otiv is building. We want to go to supervised autonomy, where these vehicles drive by themselves, but at some cases where they do not understand what is happening, that you have that fallback as a remote driver. So actually, this project has now been propelled into two. It's a twofold. It's one of them is the remote control, which is going absolutely amazing. We see our people as well testing, driving trains from a laptop basically. So it's amazing on a technology level to do this kind of things. But also, the perception part, the autonomous part of the project is really something that adds value to the project for sure, but also is right into where we want to go. Where supervised autonomy is really our North Star, where we believe that at first 60-70% of the time a vehicle will drive autonomously, and then 30% it will be a remote driver, and then hopefully along the way iteratively we can move towards a higher percentage of autonomy. So this project is really something that I would say in the last months has propelled and is really moving forward. Not only commercially but also technically.
Can you describe a little bit about the project? Because at the moment you are testing actually the remote drive of a locomotive, right? So basically the loco driver is sitting somewhere else in a room on the front of a laptop, as you mentioned, and then it's steered like a locomotive in the Netherlands on a specific dedicated line, right?
Yeah, so that's correct. So basically the project itself consists of two vehicles that will in operation, so they will move goods from Germany to the port of Rotterdam. So it's in the Netherlands. It's a fully segregated line. It's called the Batu line. Segregated means that there's no passings, there's no overways. So obviously this is ideal for testing. And there we're responsible for remotely controlling these vehicles from A to B. basically because what we see is that remote control has a lot of benefits, can lead to a lot of efficiencies, and especially with the workforce issues that they have, the shortage of drivers, this can actually be something that is really valuable. So the project itself is going to take 1 year. So 1 year of test driving. Not the entire project is 1 year. We've been working on this for quite some time. It's a 1 year of operational testing with DB Cargo, moving these two vehicles from A to B on the B2 line, remotely controlled.
Before other countries getting jealous, I think what also is fair to say, but at the moment, like also the safety purpose doesn't allow you to really drive it remotely. So you drive remotely, but you have a fallback that the local driver is still sitting in the local, right?
Yeah. So that's correct. So this is really testing and how do you say it? Stress testing this kind of technology where there's always a driver on board, where we can move from manual mode, where then the driver is actually driving the vehicle, to a remote control and supervision mode, where then the person in the Netherlands on a central location will take over the vehicle. So indeed, it's a trial project. It's a testing where we basically can do a lot of things, stress testing, and making sure that this kind of technology can be validated not only on a technological level but also by drivers, and making sure that these people actually are capable of going from a 3D environment, which the cabin of a train definitely is, to somewhat of a 2D environment. How do these people interact? What can you actually do? Because one funny part that we actually had throughout the project and still have is that sometimes there's some wheel spin, sometimes the tracks are wet, sometimes there's a bit of things on the tracks that you need to know as a driver. And basically the question we had, building the product, building the interface for that remote driving is, okay, how do you know what to do? And then the answer of a driver is usually, I feel this. I feel this in the vehicle. And this feeling, this kind of information is not something we have remotely, right? So we need to find ways to give that information to the driver, to really make them at ease driving this vehicle from a distance. This obviously comes with some kind of delay in the feedback, but also in terms of information. They don't necessarily have all the information, especially the feeling element, they don't necessarily have. So this is a super challenge, but it's going in the right direction. It's going quite well, actually. So the goal is at the end to have a validated architecture, a validated product by Deutsche Bahn Cargo, to remotely control these vehicles. And obviously there will be some steps afterwards. But
for the homologation, right? I mean,
for the homologation, exactly. Because now we have an exemption, but for the homologation, there's definitely some steps that still need to be taken. But from the vision that we have at Otiv, it really starts from the technology, proving that the technology is there, proving that it can actually be done, have acceptance from the market, from the end user, and then you can build on top of that, right? So that's definitely something that we are doing. Similarly, with what is actually also next to that project within the same vehicles is the automation part, the perception part. This is really part of the vision that Otiv has to go towards supervised autonomy, where you go towards autonomy for a certain amount of percentages, let's say, but that you still have that fallback. So it really ties into what we want to achieve in this industry and the technology that we want to build. So it's actually going quite well, and we're super happy that we can actually also do the autonomous part next to the remote control part.
That's great. I think one business area is also next to the rail freight is also the trams. Is there any news on this business field?
Yeah, so it's not only trams, but it's also industrial sites, where we look at an ArcelorMittal, for example, or a BASF. All of these industrial site production sites, they do have their logistics in-house on tracks. So Otiv is not only focusing indeed on heavy rail or mainline rail with people and goods, but also indeed urban environments and industrial. And in both of them, so both the industrial part and the urban environment, we're actually working towards autonomy, right? Again, with that stepwise approach where we have remote control, where we can work on that, and then towards supervised autonomy and then full autonomy. So in both industries, we are moving towards full autonomy because it just makes sense. Everyone is having shortage of people. That's not only in Mainline, but it's also in the urban, also in the trams. We're working with big OEMs and super innovative operators that really see the benefit of remote control and autonomous technology. And obviously, this is also in a stepwise approach in terms of rolling this out. We're focusing first industrial sites, quite easy in terms of homologation, because basically it's a private site. So there you have a bit more slack on what the homologation and certification needs to be, which is very good for us because it can still prove the technology and can already be beneficial for the end customer. But also in terms of urban tram, there we're really looking at, okay, how can we automate depot shunting? How can we automate in maintenance halls, etc.? Not necessarily full-blown autonomy and remote control in the city center, navigating these complex environments at first, but the first steps are taken there as well towards remote control and supervised autonomy. So this is something that is hugely important for us because, like we discussed before, I mean, mainline rail, it's a long game. So we're focusing on where can we actually bring value right now, today, and industrial and urban is definitely also there. But that doesn't mean that we're not focusing on mainline. Hence the project with Deutsche Bahn for remote control and autonomy.
You're quite progressing in your area. So what does this mean to the organization of Otiv? So what is the size? Are you looking for investors, for new talent? So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so definitely this has a big impact on the company as is. So we're now around 40 people. There's quite a bit of vacancies open because we have to grow not only on the commercial side, but also on the technology side. We want to make sure that we're ready for that supervised autonomy. So we're hiring. That also comes with a big investment round that is around the corner. Actually, we're closing that end of September 2025. So that's end of this month. A big funding round to basically make sure that we can stay at the forefront of the technology, that we can be in these projects, that we can actually fulfill these projects, and that we can develop this technology for the future of rail. So this is definitely changing in the company. There's multiple things that we have internally have to rethink and redesign to make sure that we can basically put an additional Otiv on top of this Otiv. That's the goal, to basically go to let's say in 80 people end of next year. Just to make sure that we stay in front and that we can stay a pioneer in the industry with our technology that we're building.
Nothing to add here. Niels, thank you very much for the update. And we hope we stay in touch because I think there's much more to come. As you said, it's really encouraging myself, really, that this kind of all the four autonomous rail tech companies from the podcast really progressing like you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, and let's indeed stay in contact. And especially when the project have finished, I'd love to discuss the outcomes and the next steps for Otiv and the technology in this industry.
What's the takeaway from this episode?
My key takeaway this time is simple and clear. Autonomous train operations will be a crucial part of the future rail ecosystem. We should pay close attention to what these startups are planning because they are likely to play a major role in shaping the industry. The journey has only just begun and the most exciting developments are still ahead. So stay tuned right here on the RAILUP podcast.
This podcast connects innovators and leaders worldwide to shape the future ecosystem of rail. Rail Up by Sebastian Sperker.